Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya.
Om Namo Bhagavate
Bhagavate Vasudevaya.
Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya.
Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya.
Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya.
Everything I've said so far, it's up there. I since I don't know everybody here, I'll give. I like to talk about myself, but just give like a 30-second introduction. My name's Braja Bihari Das, and it's an elevator speech. I got interested in Christian consciousness in 1976. I went to college at the University of Michigan, but I dropped out to become a brahmachari. I did that for 11 years. Then I met my future wife, both. That was the end of being a brahmachari. And my wife's not American, she's from Ireland. And then we moved to India and we lived in Vrindavan for 21 years. And I was running something called the Vrindavan Institute for Higher Education. And I got involved in conflict resolution at that time. I went back to school without a bachelor's degree, got a master's degree. That's a whole story. And then I started working with the Supreme Court in India, training judges and lawyers in conflict resolution, and working with Kalakanta Prabhu in introducing mediation into ISKCON. Then Kalakanta Prabhu, he got a calling, a lesser service, running Krishna House. Anyway, he didn't work with me anymore, but he was very, very instrumental at the time. So we started something called ISKCON Resolve, which is a conflict resolution program for ISKCON. And then 13 years ago, we moved back to America because my wife is the president of the temple in Washington, D.C. Brand new temple, just opened. And you give him the bigger chair, yeah. And I worked for the U.S. government for 13 years with Native Americans doing conflict resolution. I retired recently, but now I'm a consultant with NASA. Yeah, so you can't say with NASA that it isn't rocket science, because it actually is rocket science. So that's a little. I'm very happy to be here. Very. See you guys later. So should we go straight for the word for women? Then I have to pronounce the Sanskrit right. Swamna Chandar Shito Tatra Dushtaram Nistitir Satam Kalim Sattva Haram Pumsam Karnadhara Ivanavam. Swam means your goodness. And so they're talking to, anyone know who they're talking to? Who's the goodness that they're referring to? Yes, very good. Sudha Goswami. Nam means unto us. And Sandarshita means meeting. And Datra means by providence, which we could go a whole thing about. Providence is such an interesting topic, and the way it's used in different ways in the Bhagavatam and in Srila Prabhupada's translations, but we won't do that today. But it's karma, it's Krishna's arrangement, it's various ways of looking at it. Dushtaram means insurmountable. And what is insurmountable? That's two words later, Kalim, the age of Kali. But between those two words is Nishtitir Satam, which means for those desiring to cross over. So it's almost insurmountable to cross over Kali Yuga, Kali Yuga. Sattva Haram, which is a whole mess, right? It takes away, Sattva means, we know, mode of goodness, but good qualities in general. And Haram means finished, right? So it deteriorates good qualities. Pumsam, of a person, of a man, and Karnadhara. So you are the captain of the ship that's taking us over this ocean. Iva as and Arnavam means this ocean. So it's a famous and super important verse. We think that we have met your goodness by the will of providence, just so that we may accept you as the captain of the ship for those who desire to cross the difficult ocean of Kali, which deteriorates all the good qualities of a human being. Prabhupada's purport. The age of Kali is very dangerous for the human being. The fourth word next is really important verse, a word, I think. Human life is simply meant for self-realization. Simply, in this case, means exclusively, basically. It's simply meant for self-realization. But's an important word, by the way. Like if I say, Brahmatirtha Prabhu is a really nice devotee, but then you only hear what comes after that, right? So human life is simply meant for self-realization, but due to this dangerous age, men have completely forgotten the aim of life. In this age, the lifespan will be gradually decreased. People will gradually lose their memory. Finer sentiments, that we definitely see clearly, right? Finer sentiments, strained, and better qualities. A list of the anomalies for this age is given in the 12th canto of this work. And so this age is very difficult for those who want to utilize this life for self-realization. Very difficult. The people are so busy with sense gratification that they're just like simply, they completely, Prabhupada often uses hyperbole, completely forget about self-realization. Out of madness, they frankly say that there's no need for self-realization because they do not realize that this brief life is but a moment on our great journey towards self-realization. That's a beautiful sentence. They do not realize that this brief life is but a moment on our great journey towards self-realization. The whole system of education is geared to sense gratification. And if a learned man thinks it over, he sees that the children of this age are being intentionally sent to the slaughterhouses of so-called education, like Florida State University, not UF. It's different. Yeah, it's just like I went to the University of Michigan, not Michigan State. But, learned men, therefore, must be cautious of this age. And if they at all want to cross over the dangerous ocean of Kali, they must follow in the footsteps of the sages of Naimisharanya. And how? This is going to be key to the class today. And accept Sri Sutta Goswami or his bona fide representative as the captain of the ship. The ship is the message of Lord Sri Krishna in the shape of Bhagavad Gita or the Srimad Bhagavatam. Om Ajnanat Mirandasya Jnananjana Shalakaya Chakshuran Militam Yena Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha. Vanshakalpat Grubhyascha Kripa Sindhu Evacha Patitanam Pavanebhyo Vaishnavebhyo Namo Namaha. Hare Krishna. So Sutta Goswami, we're going to focus on him today because he spoke the 1.5 most important verses in the entire Bhagavatam, verses, and one's going to come up in the next chapter, and then another one's going to come up in the next chapter. But these are spoken by him, and they are the. It's sometimes said like if the room is completely dark and you have one lamp, that one, even if it's a very big room, and it's a good sized lamp, if you have that one lamp, it illuminates the entire room. So these 1.5 verses illuminate the entire Bhagavatam, and every verse in the Bhagavatam directly or indirectly points to these 2 verses spoken by Srila Sutta Goswami, not Sutta Goswami. So we're going to talk about especially the first verse. And does anyone know Canto 1, Chapter 2, verse 11? I'll give you a hint. It begins Vedanti. That's why he's guru. He knows these things. But yes. So this is sometimes called the Pariba, the king verse. It's the most important verse in the Bhagavatam, along with Ete Changsa Kalapam, Krishna's to Bhagavan Swayam. And we get this from Sutta Goswami. So let's go through this verse a little bit. The goal, Sutta Goswami is saying, don't be like Prabhupada's talking about in the purport. He's saying, be tattva jigyasa, inquire, be interested in the absolute truth. And then he says that the absolute truth is Advaya Gyan. And anyone know what Advaya Gyan means? Advaya means? Means non-dual. Non-dual. So Mayavadis love this verse. They think exactly, this is the Gyan in the Bhagavatam is non-dual. And so their idea is of that non-dual means there's no object. There's no you and me. There's only this. It's actually hard to explain, but there's no, not conscious. The absolute truth is not conscious of itself. There's no notion of I. There's no personality. There's no selfhood. There's no something else. That's in a very nutshell. There's the philosophy. So they love this verse. Advaya Gyan. But we say something different. We say, yes, Advaya Gyan. But what do we mean by that? That there is someone who is a person who has a supreme person who has energies. And that person, Krishna, that we get to a little later, but that absolute truth has no other cause. Can you think of a verse that says that Krishna has no other cause? Yeah, Brahma Samhita. What is it? What does it say in the Brahma Samhita? We got to the last line finally. Yes, sarva karana karanam. Right? There's Prabhupada's simple statements, right? We all have a mother and father. They have mother and father. You go back, you go back, you go back. Where does it begin? Sarva karana karanam. Also, Krishna in the Gita says, Aham sarvasya prabhavo. I'm the source of all spiritual and material worlds. So the other point about this is all of his energies are his energies. They're not separate. What's that verse? Parashya Bhaktir Bibhaya Suyate, right? That Krishna has all these different energies. Yes, all energies emanate from him. So he's not dependent on anyone else. That's Advaya Gyan. The energies also have no independence. So there's nobody like Krishna. There's nobody like Krishna. That's non-dual. That's non-dual. Okay. So now, sorry about being philosophical so early in the morning. This one truth, non-dual truth, is revealed in 3 ways. Brahmeti, Paramatmeti, Bhagavan iti, subjite. So subjite is an important word. It means he is spoken about or thought about in 3 different ways. So it's not, there's 3 different things. It's one, but 3 different aspects are spoken about in different ways. And how do you speak about them or think about them in 3 different ways? It depends upon 2 things. It depends on you could say our philosophy, our conception, our doctrine, and our sadhana. Those 2 things are different for those who want to be Brahman realized, those who want to be Paramatma realized, those who want to be Bhagavan realized. So Brahman is real. It's real. It's not, we don't poo-poo Brahman or Brahman realization. It's an amazing realization, but it's only a realization of the Supreme as just his power, his all pervasive. And then a person's Brahman realized sees all the things in this world, but sees that it's coming from the effulgence of the Supreme Lord. So just like if you're in a dark room for a long, long time, and then all of a sudden you go out into, high noon in Gainesville on a July, where it's super, and you can't even practice. You don't see the sun. You just see the fall because you've been in darkness for so long, and so that's you're blind. I don't mean to. I'll try not to sing any songs with Brahmatirtha. I only keep those for his classes. But you're blinded by the light. I won't sing the rest of the song. And most of you are too young to know anyway. No. But you get an extra sweet if you know who sang it originally. But no, we won't go there. It wasn't Bruce Springsteen. Okay, so this is the preliminary, indistinct understanding of the absolute truth. So I did a word search for indistinct in the folio, and it came up so many times. I said, what? It's such a unique word. So then I realized what it was is when especially in room conversations, when you couldn't understand something Prabhupada said, it goes indistinct. But in one sense, that is what Brahman realization is like. It is indistinct. It's not complete. But again, remember, Brahman and Bhagavan, they're the same matter, the same spiritual matter. They're just realized differently. Okay, so that's Brahman. Okay, so now let's go to Brahmeti Paramatmeti. Okay, so Paramatma, yogis realize Paramatma. And one of the key verses in the Bhagavad Gita, anyone know chapter 18, verse 61? It begins, the key word is the first word, Ishvara. Ishvara Sarva Bhutanam. Hridesha Arjuna Tishti. Hriday means in the heart. And so it says that the Supreme Lord is situated in everyone's heart. Now this is interesting. Krishna's not saying I'm situated in everyone's heart. He says Ishvara is situated. He says the Supreme Lord, Paramatma, is situated in everyone's heart. Right? And is directing the wanderings of all living entities who are seated on a machine made of material energy. So Paramatma is God for this world. Okay. So if we don't understand God and his source, that's Brahman realization. When we see his power, that's Brahman realization, not the person behind the power. That is the super soul, the God of this world, the supreme controller, Ishvara Sarva Bhutanam, controlling everything. So yogis, they actually get this amazing vision, a real paka yogi, not like some yogi, but a real person who's really getting Paramatma. They're seeing how Paramatma is controlling everything in this world. They see karma. Right? They can actually be Trikalagya. They can see past, present, and future, which is all in this world. So but they can have amazing. Even we read about the 8 powers that a yogi can have. They get so incredible powers in this world. They can read your palm. Very. One time somebody asked Srila Prabhupada, can you tell me my future? And Prabhupada was very, I don't do that. But the person was so insistent. And finally Prabhupada said, yes, you're going to get old, diseased, and die. But really, it's an incredible power. But remember, it's all in this world. And we're not here to poo-poo other traditions, but many spiritual traditions, they go as far as this, understanding God in this world. It's often that, but, God is the supreme judger, right? Judges who sin, who saved, and things of that nature. But actually, God has nothing to do with judgment. It's like for Krishna and Bhagavan realization, It's not on his mind at all. He has his own world. And that's Bhagavan realization, right? That is, instead of God for of this world, he's God for himself. He's the supreme personality of Godhead. So we tend to be egocentric, and therefore we're very interested in God in this world. But there's a whole spiritual reality in the Rig Veda. What is that verse? Om Tad Vishnu Paramam Padam. Right? There's this Paramam Padam. There's this. He's not only Jagat Dhamma, the controller of this Jagat, this world, but he's Param Dhamma. He's his real interest ultimately is in the spiritual world. So that's this Bhagavan realization is the highest. And so Sutta Goswami, he so wonderfully, since this verse is all about him, he's giving this key verse to actually understand what the absolute truth is. That God and his spiritual energies, Paramatma is God and his material energies. And what is he doing? He's with his loving devotees. I mean, and if we get into more details, that there's the Aishwarya Gyan of God in the spiritual world by Kunta planets and awe and reverence. Just like I remember one time I was in Jaipur and I went to a Lakshmi Narayan temple, and the altar was way up, and they were huge deities. And it was like, okay, I get it. Aishwarya Gyan. The opulence and the power of Krishna in his form of Vishnu. And so for the Brahmavadis, it's really easy, right? All is one. And even for the Paramatma Vadis, I guess that's the way to put it, there's one. There's the super soul. Or you can say there's three. There's three super souls, right? There's Shiro Dakshaya Vishnu, Garbha Dakshaya Vishnu, Karna Dakshaya Vishnu. But then we get to Bhagavan, and there's Bhagawans all over the place, right? There's Kurma avatar. What are some other avatars? Matsya, Nrsimha, everyone's favorite. What? Kalki? Okay, Kalki, just now coming. Yeah, right. Parshuram, yeah, right. Buddha, okay, there we go. Little impersonals in the back there. Yeah, Vamana, right. And then there's other, Narada is sometimes called Bhagavan, Vyasadeva is sometimes, Gurudev is something, because Shakshad Dharitain, right? And it could be like, and therefore the second important verse, Canto 1, Chapter 3, verse 28. All of these different avatars are explained, and then Sutta Goswami again to the rescue, and he says Krishna's to Bhagavan Swayam. And then he explains that Krishna is that supreme personality of Godhead ultimately. It's interesting that Krishna, what time of the day does Krishna appear? Yeah, yes, at night. Darn, right? We got to fast a little bit in a minute. Why can't he be like Lord Ramachandra, appear at noon? Right? But there's a significance. There's a significance to him appearing at midnight. And that is, maybe, I can't remember the Sanskrit, maybe some of you, that one is, what is day for the conditioned soul is night for the introspective sage, right? And what is day for the introspective sage is night for the conditioned soul. Someone knows the verse? Yeah, thank you. It's a beautiful verse. Yeah, etc. Right. So he appears at night, indicating that this is I heard this recently by Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur, that we have to to understand Krishna, we have to be detached from this world and the enjoyment of this world, as Prabhupada is explaining this purport, and just being in this world and be actually absorbed in Krishna consciousness. And that's one of the significant points about him appearing at midnight. So when do we go into it? Okay, so we can end soon and ask for questions and things. So going back to this verse then, and this amazingly powerful purport, we want to take shelter of Sutta Goswami and his representatives and make them the captain of the ship. But normally, and for obvious reasons, when someone reads this verse, I often give a talk about Srila Prabhupada, right? Because he's captain of our ship. So I wanted to just emphasize just how important Sutta Goswami is actually in our life, because as Prabhupada says in the last sentence, the ship is the message. What is that ship? It's the message of Lord Krishna in the shape of Bhagavad Gita and Srimad Bhagavatam. And it is Sutta Goswami who has given us these two most important verses in the entire Bhagavatam to direct us of what is actually, the essence of reality. What is Adhyaya Gyan? What are these three features? And then in Bhagavan, who's really are we meant to focus on? And what is the Bhagavatam really all about? And all of the different steps in the Bhagavatam, they're super important. Because sometimes we might read, second canto, third canto. So what is it, like 6 times creation is explained? When are we going to get to the good stuff, so to speak? But it's all there for very specific reasons. And actually, for someone who's in love with Krishna, they can read what we would consider, what I might consider, like a boring verse, and they can be in total ecstasy because they see what it's leading to. Sanatana Goswami in his glorification of the Bhagavatam says, every syllable rains pure love of Krishna. And if we go through the Bhagavatam systematically, and you guys are starting again, it leads us then to proper consciousness when we get to the 10th canto, and we understand who God ultimately is. And that's what that was kind of, as I was driving here, again, it's not to, we're so fortunate. I was going to say not to denigrate other faiths and things like that, but that's not the point. We're so fortunate because we can actually, you don't see too many people actually discussing just the Leela of God, what God is like. He's, why he takes birth in a prison house, why he's carried over at such a, just after birth to Mother Yashoda and Nanda Maharaj. What happens when he lifts over downhill? Just that whole focus just on Krishna. Just focusing and hearing about Krishna. That, because we have so many details, by the mercy of Sutta Goswami, by the mercy of Sukadev Goswami, by the kindness of Maharaj Parikshit's great questions. We whole another talk on just the importance of questions. Questions are so important. The other way to look at the Bhagavatam is, in one sense, the 6 questions in this chapter that you've been reading, because tomorrow's the last verse. The rest of the Bhagavatam answers those 6 questions on one level. And then all these great questions by Parikshit Maharaj and Maitreya and Vidura and all those great questions. And then you go to the Chaitanya Charitamrita, and actually Lord Chaitanya asking questions to Ramananda Roy. Questions are so important. And then the speaker, as mentioned many times in the Bhagavatam, the speaker becomes enlivened when there's a good question. There's nothing like, and I hope this isn't like hint, there's nothing like giving a Bhagavatam class and someone asks a question that has nothing to do with what you said. You ever had that? It's like, even if it's a good question, it's like, well, what about? It was like, okay, but this is what's on my mind. So, question. The Bhagavatam also is dialogue, questions between guru and disciple. It's just such a wonderful book, and we should be so inspired. Find a way to be inspired by everything, including the creation, and seeing what's behind that, and what is that? How is it placed in the Bhagavatam, and understanding the flow of the Bhagavatam. It's actually wonderful, and we really get to pure devotional service. Of course, as mentioned in the next chapter, but we really get an example of pure devotional service. You have to wait really ultimately to the seventh canto, and we see Prahlad Maharaj. He's actually practicing pure bhakti. All right. Questions, comments? Yes, in the back. Well, you have the mic, so he who has the mic rules.
We have many mics.
Oh.
Thank you, Prabhu. It was a lovely class. I was thinking about one thing when you mentioned the significance of Krishna appearing at midnight, and you were saying that we need to move away from this world, and that's the only way to really get more absorbed in Krishna. It made me think of something. Recently, I've been doing, I guess you could call it research, looking at devotees who stop practicing.
Stop practicing.
Yeah. And I'm looking at what they're saying and how they're feeling. And a lot of them feel like they sometimes harbor resentment. They feel like Krishna consciousness made them turn their back on the world.
Mm-hmm.
And they have conflicting and complicated feelings about that. So I was just thinking now while you were speaking, it's such a nuanced thing to move away from this world so that we can move towards Krishna. It's very easy to do that in the wrong and artificial way and become very impersonal and isolated. Like as an example, we're living in a temple, and you know, one might misunderstand what it means to renounce this world. You could lose out on so many nice connections you can have with the other devotees in the temple.
Oh yeah.
What to speak of, for example, our natural inclinations. I'm so fortunate because the community that I started my Krishna consciousness in South Africa, there was a really nice project leader, and he engaged all our talents. Every year, more than once, we put on these big festivals at the university where we made music and had dramas, and
so you use your propensity.
We use our inclinations. So yes, this concept of yukta vairagya, like moving away from this world, it doesn't mean just like putting blinders on our eyes, but it means moving away from the desire to use everything for ourselves, and everything can be used in Krishna's service. So I just wanted to share some thoughts on that.
Well, yeah, because Gyan and Vairagya, Janayat Yasu Vairagyam, Gyanam Chayata Hoitukam. Gyan and Vairagya can harden the heart, as you're kind of indirectly pointing out, right? And yeah, I remember when I was a new brahmachari. No, maybe I should mention. But we had in Detroit, we had a temple room, and the men chanted in the temple room, and the women chanted in the hall. And I was like a bull, like bulls, they put their head down and just. So when I had to get into the temple room and go past the ladies, I just kind of like, and if I only look at their ankles, but but if I knocked a few over, it's collateral damage. At least I got into the temple room. Yeah. So it was a little like that. So Rupa Goswami, we're talking about Sutta Goswami now. Rupa Goswami is an incredible genius, because the question is, how do you become full of knowledge and renunciation without hardening your heart? That's the question. And he gives the solution, and you kind of quoted it. Anashaktasya vishayanyartaham upayunjita nirbandha Krishna sambandhe yukte vairagya uchite. That real renunciation is not renouncing this world, but seeing this world as Krishna's creation and seeing the Krishna sambandha. And then you become renounced because, the example is there of you find a wallet on the street, and anyone here, Brahmatirtha Prabhu exception, there's three choices, right? You can either keep the money like he would do and give it to Krishna. Keep the money, or just leave it there, or pick it up, find out, the address, the phone number of the person, and return it, right? So the leaving it there is like the Gyanis. Using it for one's own enjoyment is like a karmis, and finding the real owner of it is like the devotee. So by seeing the relationship with Krishna, we don't renounce things, we use everything, including Apple computers, Apple watches, Apple phones, in Krishna service, hopefully. And then we actually become renounced. So yes, maybe this wasn't understood or appreciated, or at least that may be part of the reason why people find challenges in Krishna consciousness, because it can become hard-hearted if we don't connect things with Krishna. And you have the microphone, Kalaganta Guru.
Yeah, there was an advertisement once, lost wallet, finder may keep the pictures, but I have sentimental attachment to the money. At the end of the Gita, Krishna talks about renunciation. The last chapter is about renunciation. He says renunciation in the mode of passion is done when things are troublesome. So I think, Gopi, in the early days, people would sometimes come to Krishna consciousness because their lives were troublesome. And then they were in Krishna consciousness for a while, and their lives became troublesome again. So it doesn't last. That's the thing about renunciation of the mode of passion. It just creates more distress. So our curriculum here is to help people prepare for life after the ashram.
Right.
Which you and I experienced, but very slowly, right? More or less on our own, we figured it out.
Yeah.
So
We're
what's
still trying to figure it out
Well-
after 34 years of marriage.
I was thinking more about your work with NASA.
Oh,
So you work in dispute resolution
yes.
for NASA.
Yes. Yeah, I don't make rockets.
Yeah, I'm glad to know. So anyway, just would like you to hear a little bit about that. Like you, in other words, had this very intense renounce period for 11 years, and renunciation means more than just changing ashrams, which, by the way, is a step up, in responsibility. But it means to be able to deal with the world and yet remain Krishna conscious. So how have you accomplished that in our life?
Well, I would say for me, two of the reasons are sitting right over here. It's having really deep, good friends in Krishna consciousness who are more senior and more advanced than me, like Brahmatirtha and Kalakanta Prabhu. Another person I'm going to see tomorrow, Shesha Prabhu, and Burijan Prabhu, having really good friends in Krishna consciousness. I know that probably wasn't the answer you were looking at, but it was the first thing that came to my mind. And friends have, like for example, these two Prabhus were married longer than me. And, having, seeing their example, and Shesha also married longer than me. Really, and Burijan Prabhu also, he's been married for 1970, right? So seeing that example, and also when going through challenges, finding people like them to talk about and to talk to, and guide me, just like here that verse today, right? That we found your goodness by providence. So I think Krishna's kindness, providence, directed me to have really good friends, and I saw that also with my son, who's chosen to practice Krishna consciousness. And I think the reason he was born in Vrindavan, went to University of Texas. But anyway, but what really helped him, so I think again and again, it's on a practical level, it's having friends. And also friends don't just pat you on the back and say, or in the head, good boy, good boy. They also say, what the hell? What were you thinking? You can't do that, or that's really stupid, right? So real friends will also call you out, right? When you're doing something that isn't. And that's actually closest kind of friend. And so Brahmatirtha will do that with me, usually in a joking way, because he knows my ego's like. But I'll get the point. And it's really because Brahmatirtha wasn't here, but actually we co-founded ISKCON Resolve, a program of conflict resolution. And it's a lot of it, I think, any progress I've made, a lot of it is due to these relationships. And even, I mentioned Burijan Prabhu, so I'm initiated by Burijan Prabhu. That's a whole long story about being initiated prior. But it's a friendship. And that's actually mentioned in the first verse of the seventh canto, right? That the spiritual master one is firm friendship. But he wanted, obviously I follow what he says, but I try to, or sometimes I do, maybe every now and then. But yeah, those kind of relationships in Krishna. And I probably, if you look at your research that you did, Prabhu, you might find that might have been sometimes lacking. Is Priti Lakshana, right? Giving gifts, accepting gifts. Like yesterday, we went to Publix, and Brahmatirtha was buying some things, and I said, "Well, I'll pay for it." So I put my credit card in the machine, but fortunately, it didn't work, so he had to pay for it. But at least, it's a true story. But at least I tried. So at least I made an effort of, but I felt really good when he actually gave me a gift. I learned from my mom. Yeah. So that might be also something to investigate when you look at devotees who have some challenges in bhakti. That what is their level of friendship? And it's important to note, friendship is a verb. I mean, literally, not literally, right? It's a noun, but it's a verb. It's something we should work on. If we don't think we have enough friends or deep friendships in devotional service, we should work on it, because it's actually a very important part of advancing in devotional service. So just like I'm here, it was actually my son. I went to another close friend of mine, went to the Vyasa Puja of Ritavaja Swami in Dallas, and my son just said, I didn't know Kalakanta Prabhu was here. He said, you should just, do another, on the way back, go to Gainesville, see your friends Brahmatirtha and Sheshaprabhu. I said, yeah. So it's really important to seek out and develop friendships. Love is also a verb, right? Bhakti, and Prabhupada used to say devotional service, not just devotion, but it's a verb. It's an active thing. So we have to seek out friendships. And even if we say we have friends, seek out making them deeper friends. Seek out having that friendship where a person can say, you Egypt, that my wife's Irish. Egypt means like idiot in Gaelic. I've been called an Egypt by her a few times. You Egypt, right? And that's a real friend. So, does that answer your question, Philip? Yeah. Okay.
So you learned the skill of speed
resolution. Oh, okay. That's what the point was. Yes. So what happened was I was going to some of the senior meetings in Mayapur annually, and I saw that they dealt with conflicts. They didn't really deal with them in a great way. And so it's also how Krishna sometimes guides you, the Krishna magic. Can I 2 more minutes on Krishna magic? Yeah. So I didn't know anything about conflict resolution. So I just said, give me $500, my dear GBC, and I'll buy some books. And then there was a devotee there, Madhava Pandit, whose next door neighbor was this guy named Arnold Zach, who you guys know well. Old Jewish guy who was very big in the field of conflict resolution. And he kind of took me under his wing. He saw me as a lost Jewish guy. And then he introduced me to Mary Rowe, who's like the guru of our profession. She's taught at MIT. He taught at Harvard. She taught at MIT for 44 years. And in the last 20 years, I've exchanged 8,000 emails with her. And and she's guided, and she just wrote a peer-reviewed article on the Gita values and using those in conflict resolution. So I was very fortunate to have these people, very favorable to bhakti. Arnold's been to Mayapur twice, and Mary's taught at the Boston Temple, been to Bhaktivedanta Manor, and things like that. And so it just kind of fell in my lap, and they directed me. It was Mary wrote the president of the university and said, I know he doesn't have a bachelor's degree, but you should accept it, make an exception, and accept him into the master's program because she's MIT, the letterhead. And I said, okay. Yeah. So that's how I got into it. And then, again, by chance, I was just on the internet one day and looked up, there was a mediation program in Bangalore. So I attended that, and I said, you should join our program. So then I started training judges, Supreme Court judges and High Court judges. Yeah. And then when we moved back to America, because of my work in ISKCON, I got a job, U.S. government. They saw and and I did that for 13 years, working mainly with Native Americans, and using the skills that I learned in ISKCON, actually, and trying to help conflicts. But your point was, I didn't hide that I was a devotee, when I was at work. And people, especially in my field, you have to be respectful. You need to think, oh, Hare Krishnas are nuts. You wouldn't say that, right? Because you have to. And it was, and then even people, my colleagues were really nice people. And then that really struck me one time, because as a young devotee, I used to always hear, now, Yasyatma Buddhi or Kanuna Petri Datu. No, that's not the verse I'm thinking of. Manas, the one where they have no good qualities because they're Yasyasti Bhakti or Bhagavati Kinchana Savargunas Tatra Samasates. Hare Abhaktasya Kuto Mahagunam. They have no good qualities because they're on the mental platform. So I used to, but it was bewildering because I saw they have some pretty good qualities. So then I heard a lecture by Prabhupada, and he said, what is the use of their good qualities? And that really struck, because that's connected to the purport today, right? Where Prabhupada talks about how this is one life of so many lives. So, you have good qualities in one life, but he acknowledged they had good qualities. And that really helped me a lot in dealing with them. But, kind of sticking to my guns, and always, I traveled a lot. I lived in hotels about 110 days a year. But, always, chanting my rounds and trying to be Krishna conscious and stuff like that. I'd cook in the hotel room, like that. Is that all right? And I think our time is up, but you had your hand, but Mats, you had your hand up at one point? No? I thought you did. Yeah.
Yeah, I had a longer question, but I'll skip that and I'll ask the short one.
Okay.
The short question is, you mentioned there's 2 verses in Srimad Bhagavatam that all the other verses are illuminated by it. Can you just repeat the 2?
1:2:11 and 1:3:28.
Okay.
And Savadanti Tattva Vidas and Ete Changsakala Pungsam. Well, because the rest of it is interesting, but it's not the key point. Yeah. No, it's a full verse. Yeah, it's a full verse. But and so they're so significant that that first verse, Jiva Goswami wrote these huge books, 2 huge books just on one verse. Yeah. And the second one, he wrote another whole book just on that, the Sandarbhas. So yeah, they're kind of important. Oh, that was easy. That was an easy one. Okay, so yes, Boo.
Point that you're making about having friends.
Yes.
And Haladhar Maharaj is the
Who?
Haladhar Maharaj, he's a
Haladhar.
sannyasi from Orissa. He was visiting. He gave a class in Alachua and he was mentioning this point. Why do you think people leave Krishna consciousness? He said the main reason was they lose attachment to a devotee, or they lose attachment to a sadhu. Like no matter what difficulties there is, if you have some attachment to a devotee, like in this case, if you have good devotee friends, then you'd never stop the practice. And that really struck me.
Prabhupada said that to Burjam once. He said, man is a social animal. And he said, if you don't associate with devotees, you'll be forced to associate with non-devotees, and then you won't be able to follow the regulated principles. So we do have to be, the other side of that, of being in the world, is to just be, careful about the kind of association we have and not letting it overwhelm, not cover our bhakti. Yeah. So I was, again, so fortunate because Brahmatirtha Prabhu and I worked on this project now for 22 years. And so, we talk all the time. And, even when I'm on the road, when I was working in those hotel rooms, we would talk constantly. And that was, such a blessing. Yeah. And then when I was in Vrindavan, actually I lived in the same house as Burjam Prabhu for about 10 years. So that was also a real blessing. Yeah. All right. Thank you very much.